I can't believe I'm saying this. I think the Celtics are going to be the best team in the league next year. I have them at 65 wins, which is how many wins that the Rockets had last season. My thing is this. I remember 4 years ago when the Warriors kind of took off out of nowhere after showing signs the previous season.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's going to happen here. They have arguably a top 2 coach in Brad Stevens. They showed signs at the beginning of last season, even before Tatum was really kind of finding his footing. And without Tatum, but with Kyrie Irving in place and the rest of their defensive guys, they showed signs and they went on this crazy run. And then even when Kyrie went down, they still advanced to the playoffs and absolutely showed out.
Yeah.
Look, here's my thing. Tatum has become weirdly a little bit overrated.
He's culty.
But he's still very good at basketball.
He's very culty right now.
He's very culty, but he's still really good.
Oh, super, super good.
And people are forgetting how damn good Gordon Hayward is. He's really good.
Yeah.
He's really good.
Yeah, he's a damn good NBA player, that's for sure.
He's gonna be such a nice fit here. And the last thing is Kyrie Irving he's a really good leader. And I can really see him taking this team by the reins. I just think this is going to be one of these years where it's like this team has the best defense in the league. They have this offense that they have so many weapons that it's going to be kind of like, how do you stop these guys night to night?
Yeah.
And they don't have that much attrition. They're all young. So.
And I think that's a big thing, is to realize that this is the first year that this team is going to be together.
It's unbelievable. They have Marcus Smart. They brought him back. I mean, Terry Rozier, he's going to have nights where he is the third best player on the floor.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable. And they got to the Eastern Conference. They were one game away from the finals without Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward.
Yeah.
That will forever go down as one of the most absurd things to happen.
Yeah, that was really an incredible run.
It's unbelievable that happened.
People still always forget how good Gordon Hayward is. I think he's just going to be so good for this team.
Yeah.
And Brad Stevens hasn't coached him since college. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be fun, and it's really fun to see these guys together. I mean, I felt like I was almost being conservative with 65, and I know that's ridiculous, but
you're out of your mind.
I just, for some reason, I really feel like they're not going to have that like period of trying to figure it out, and I know they will, and that's ridiculous. But the fit of this team, it's so future NBA with all these different wings and a lead creator in Kyrie Irving. And this like do-it-all center, it's like everything that where the league is going, they have it. And it upsets me as somebody that doesn't like the Celtics to see this.
Yeah.
I have the Bucks at the 3 seed. You're making a face right now, and here's my thing. I think the addition of Coach Bud.
Are you trying to tell me that Jason Kidd was not the coach of the year last year? For anyone who doesn't get that, go listen to the 2017-2018 preview pod.
Please don't, actually. Please don't, for Max's sake of being a somebody that you want to listen to talk about the NBA.
My buddy over here to the right picked Malik Monk to be his rookie of the year.
Oh, God.
So.
Well, let's save that because I might have doubled down here a little bit. In fact, I definitely did.
I'm excited to laugh at you for
I'm
this.
very excited to laugh at myself in 12 months. But anyway, so the Bucks. Here's my thing with them. The Bucks last year, offensively, they were pretty good. They were 7th ranked offense. They were the 17th ranked defense. And it didn't really make sense to me because the previous years they were pretty solid defensively. And they have a lot of guys. I mean, Giannis Antetokounmpo is one of those all-around do-it-all guys. He can do everything on defense. He can absolutely lock down a defense. The Atlanta Hawks last year, I was looking through because I was trying to figure out who the bottom teams were.
Yeah.
Last season, they were the 21st ranked defense, and it's really only like a couple of decimals, the differences, but they still are a level ahead of the Nets or the Knicks or the or maybe a couple of other bottom feeders, the Magic. That team has no one good defensively on it. Who's their best defender?
I have no idea. I couldn't even tell you.
I really could not tell you. So that's what I'm saying is that Giannis and Coach Bud, they're going to come together. This is the best coach for Giannis and the best player that Budenholzer has ever coached.
And I think Brook Lopez is one of the underrated fans.
Very sneaky signing. The Ursan Ilyasova, an overpay, but gives you more three-point shooting. And I think that Middleton is going to take a step up. And I actually think he's going to be an all-star this year.
Wow. I like that call. I think Middleton
He was unbelievable against the Celtics.
Is one of those guys that every NBA nerd loves.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just something so lovable about his game. His shot's a little weird, but it just feels like it goes in every time.
Lethal from mid-range.
Yeah, lethal from mid-range. And I just really think Brook Lopez opens up their spacing nicely because they really don't have that knockdown three-point shooter, and Brook Lopez is probably one of their best three-point shooters in that starting lineup.
Right, and I also think that Coach Bud is going to help Middleton. He's still going to let him take his mid-range shots, but I expect him to take a few more shots from maybe the corners or from from spot up. I just expect his, I guess, what he's bringing to the court in terms of like points per game and just in terms of efficiency and where he's getting to in terms of true shooting percentage to go up just a little bit, just because he won't be put in the low block and having to isolate as much. So I'm really excited for this team. I may be overhyping them just because I like this team a lot, and they still have a lot of holes and a lot of questions. But just in terms of what I think they're going to be on the table, which is going to be a much better defensive team that does have a little bit more three-point shooting, which was their biggest hole, I expect big things. I have the Nets up next. I have them winning 26 games. Here's my thing. They were second in the league with shots from three-point range in terms of frequency. 41% of their shots were from three, which is absurd. They shot 35% from that range.
I knew they were chucking, but I didn't realize it was
It's absurd. Much. It's like the Rockets, I believe, were 50%. They were just below that. And then another step below that is at like 38%. So they chuck. And they shot 35% from that range. Their offensive rating last year was at 104, which was good for 21st in the league, which is obviously a bit better than you'd expect for one of the worst teams in the league.
Yeah.
And that's higher than any other tanking team. So here's my thing, is that barfing up that many threes, sadly it gets you wins. It does just enough.
Yeah, it does, because you're really just doubling down on hoping for those hot nights.
The reason why I wouldn't have them a little bit higher at like 28, 29, this is the first year they have their pick. And you have to wonder, are they going to try to tank? Are they going to bottom out? There's no incentive to win. I mean, they have been kind of like that frustrating team that you play in April where you're like, we shouldn't be having trouble with the Nets. I don't think that's going to be the case this upcoming season. I think it's going to be really fun to watch them, honestly, because they have like a weirdly balanced roster. It's all like slightly below average, but they're like 10 guys deep of slightly below average. There's no real stars on the roster, but they're all like guys that you're like, yeah, I mean, that guy can put up like
he can do it.
10 to 12 points a game. And it's just like a full roster that I think it's really, really going to be interesting to watch. With that said, though, I do expect them to kind of reel it back a little bit once February rolls around and they are well out of the playoffs. So
the Magic, I just don't even
Let's
know.
start with the Magic.
Yeah, because
let's start with them.
Yeah, let's start with them first. Okay. The Magic, I don't know what they're doing.
Okay.
They re-signed Aaron Gordon.
Not a bad deal.
Which is nice because he was good for them last year, but his 3-point shooting was significantly hotter at the beginning of the season than it was by the end.
Well, the whole team was.
Yeah, exactly. You forget that they started hot, and then
I have some stats. You ready for it, Mr. Small Sample Size? You ready for it?
Yeah.
So
I'm ready.
If you look back to, I believe it was around November, the number one seeds in the East and the West were Memphis and the Magic. The Magic were 8-4 in their first 12 games, and after November 10th, they had a 19-win pace. That is abysmal.
Yeah.
And they had a coaching change, which is basically the same thing. It's Vogel for Steve Clifford, two guys that run defensive-oriented, philosophies that, frankly, are outdated at this point.
Yeah, true.
There's a reason Vogel doesn't have a job, and Steve Clifford is kind of clinging to the end of his NBA career.
Yeah,
they have no point guard whatsoever. Like, they might have the worst point guard situation in the entire league.
Yeah,
and
who are they going to try to trot out there?
Mr. Depth Chart, you can take a look at that right now.
DJ Augustine. Which is actually not as bad as I expected it to be, because there's worse situations than that.
And you know what my favorite part is? They still have an incredibly messy and overlapped roster in terms of big men. Now it's just top 5 picks.
Yeah,
it's not Bismack Biyombo anymore and Vucevic.
Yeah, no, they have Vucevic, Bamba, Isaac, and Gordon. Like, what are you going to do with those 4 guys?
This team, they need to move this team or something. We need to start over with the Magic. This is ridiculous. They have declined every single season in terms of wins for the last 5 years.
Are the Magic trying to do what the Sixers did at one point, where they're just going to keep overlapping positions and hope that one guy
But
hits?
it's not intentional. The Sixers were like outward, like, we're not trying to win. This team is like, I think we got it this year.
They're the unintentional tank. They're the unintentional Sixers.
They're the most miserable franchise in the entire league. Even worse than the Kings.
Yeah, it's really ugly.
So this is a topic that I've been sitting on for a while, but I figured it would be a good time to discuss it just because we are in the off season. I wanted to go through the pros and cons of tanking. If you don't already know what tanking is, tanking can best be described as a team intentionally losing in order to increase their draft odds, and it's a strategy that has been used for years. The first time we saw a team famously tank was in 1996, when the San Antonio Spurs set their star player, David Robinson, for the entire season in order to draft Tim Duncan with the first overall pick. In the more modern era, tanking was revolutionized by the Philadelphia 76ers and their GM, Sam Hinkie, who famously trumpeted losing intentionally while stacking assets. This didn't just mean losing games, it meant trading away everyone, and I mean everyone, from their roster to start the rebuild. The trades didn't stop there though, as they dealt away young picks with high trade value, such as Michael Carter-Williams, and also acquired players with bad contracts that were paired with high draft picks from desperate teams looking to win now. Sam Hinkie became renowned across the league for his bold strategy after building a team from the draft that this year won 52 games. And now many middling teams in our copycat league have also opted for this strategy of bottoming out. However, not all NBA fans glorify Hinkie's tanking, and many feel that it's bad for the league. So I thought it would be a great idea to observe tanking from both sides of the fence. The pros of tanking. Tanking is the best way to build a contender, especially as a small market team. Outside of the Sixers, who have built a team from multiple top 3 picks in Embiid and Simmons, there are other teams that have built a strong foundation from being repeat offenders in the lottery. The Thunder come to mind with their 3, and this is still so ridiculous to say, MVPs. My Minnesota Timberwolves have also built a playoff team through literally living in the draft. Even the Phoenix Suns, who have suddenly become a league pass darling, have built arguably one of the strongest future squads in the league by losing for years and years. Let's take a look at the past 5 seasons to see who had the worst record in the league and where they picked. 2018, the Phoenix Suns had the worst record in the league and selected DeAndre Ayton with the first overall pick. In 2017, the Brooklyn Nets had the worst record. However, their pick went to the Celtics, who then selected Markelle Fultz with the first overall pick. In 2016, the honor of worst team in the league belonged to the aforementioned Philadelphia 76ers, and they selected Ben Simmons with the first overall pick. In 2015, it was my Minnesota Timberwolves who were the best that season at losing, and selected Karl Anthony Towns with the first overall pick. And then to close it out, 2014 belonged to the Milwaukee Bucks, who selected Jabari Parker with the second overall pick. Whether we like it or not, losing correlates with the opportunity to draft generational talents. Number 1 picks represent the highest share of all-star selections out of any draft slot, and the best way to get to that coveted number 1 spot? Losing. You can build a team in other ways, whether this be partial rebuilds like the Celtics, or simply by signing superstars like the Lakers are trying to do this summer, but the fact remains, NBA players choose their destinies more than ever, and guys want to join winning organizations. And in my opinion, the best way to become a winning franchise is to select the best young talent. And thanks to rookie contracts and restricted free agency, players are usually expected to stay with a team for a minimum of 6 to 7 years, making the draft also the most sustainable way to win. Point number 2, tanking allows for players and coaches to grow organically. This point is pretty simple. There's no pressure on both coaches and players when playing on a team that is trying to lose. For coaches, they are given the ability to run their sets and establish their philosophies without many larger egos that usually come from NBA stars. This is especially important for new NBA coaches who get the ability to adjust to the flow of the NBA game and try things without the pressure of upper management wanting to win now. This pertains even more to players. Players on losing teams have the ability to make mistakes and learn from them. They won't have to worry about the threat of an NBA vet and one that is looking to win a championship before they retire, yelling at them after every single error. Many players on tanking teams come from the second round or are undrafted, and would not normally get the opportunities they receive on tanking teams. They receive minutes outside of garbage time and learn their place in the NBA, while also refining and growing skills that they may not have had prior to joining the league. The best example of a player who succeeded in this environment is Robert Covington, who last season signed a $62 million contract and was also the starting small forward for the 52-win Sixers, after spending years improving on some desolate Sixers teams. Let's move on into it. On the court, I think that this group of young guys and LeBron James are about to be a very solid team. They have a near excess of promising talent, and I think that the future of this squad is bright, with the best player in the entire league at the helm. However, as good as they may be on the court, it's off the court where I have some concerns. We've seen in the past that off the court issues can break up a team, such as the infamous love triangle with Tony Braxton that broke up the Mavericks. However, there has been one dynamic that has popped up multiple times over the past couple of seasons that has really fascinated me. It seems that locker rooms with two distinct and different age groups seem to have issues, with those issues stemming from the personality differences that come with age. 2 years ago, the Bulls featured a very strange roster, pairing a big three of sorts of Rajon Rondo, Dwayne Wade, and Jimmy Butler, with a bunch of young players such as Nikola Mirotic, Bobby Portis, Doug McDermott, and Paul Zipser. The team had large expectations that season, however, they did underachieve even in a weak Eastern Conference, and their struggles definitely frustrated their stars. After a loss against the Hawks, Dwayne Wade went to the media and said this: "I don't know if I see enough guys who really want it. Losses like this have to hurt them. I'm 35 years old, I have 3 championships. It shouldn't hurt me more than it hurts these young guys. They have to want it." Jimmy Butler, on the other hand, came forth and said this: "If you're not pissed off that you lost, man, something is wrong. This is your job. This is what you're supposed to love to do, and I don't think that everybody looks at it that way." At the start of next season, neither Wade nor Butler were on the Bulls roster, and the team has been a bottom 5 team in the league ever since. The second example is near and dear to my heart, and it pains me. If you don't already know, I am a Timberwolves fan, which is like never easy. This past season, we added the aforementioned Jimmy Butler onto our young roster with one of the brightest futures in the league. What followed was a whole lot of mediocrity, a disappointing 8-seed finish, and a first-round bounce. Since the gentleman's sweep against the Rockets, concerning statements have leaked to the media, the biggest being Jimmy Butler's disdain for the effort put forth by Karl Towns and Andrew Wiggins, especially on the defensive end of the floor. According to a report, Butler is fed up with the nonchalant attitude of his younger teammates, and apparently has no intention to sign a new contract with the team. Which is why I find LeBron's decision to join one of the youngest teams in the league so odd. Yes, I get that he wanted to go to LA for the lifestyle, but on the court, the fit is definitely odd. For now, LeBron seems to be letting the front office do as they wish, which is great, but how will he react if the team is sub 500 by November or even December with one of the worst defenses in the league? The team is young, and there's not that many guys that have showed defensive prowess, so it's more than likely that they will definitely struggle on that end of the floor. Furthermore, how will LeBron react to the mixtapes, the diss tracks, and the never-ending LeVar Ball saga? My guess? Probably not that well. In the past, LeBron has manipulated front office moves to surround himself with other people in his age group, with the idea that these players know how to play the game. He obviously doesn't have that leverage that he had previously due to the length of his 4-year contract, but for the first time in his career, LeBron will be the minority on his team in terms of age, with a majority of the Lakers in their first 3 seasons. There seems to be a big honeymoon for LeBron to LA, but I have a feeling that it will end eventually, and it remains to be seen how LeBron will react to, say, a Lonzo Ball 1-for-9 shooting night from 3, or a night of poor shot selection from Kyle Kuzma, or even worse, the Brandon Ingram game where he fails to assert himself and shoots only 6 or 7 shots. I mentioned before that this Lakers team has a ton of talent, to the point where it may be almost too much talent, especially with how good Svi and Josh Hart looked over the summer league. It's a big responsibility to figure out the shot distribution, especially for a young coach in Luke Walton. and I am dubious as to whether a 34-year-old LeBron has the patience for it. As I said, I want to keep this short, but I do want to close out on one last statement. There's a sentiment that LeBron is going to punt away year one with the Lakers. I find this to be ridiculous. Windows close faster than we realize, and LeBron is a competitive guy. We saw that last season in Cleveland where he dragged that sorry team to the finals, and at 34 years old, it's really now or never for LeBron if he wants to compete for an NBA championship again. So don't be surprised if this comes at the expense rather than with the Lakers' youth. On August 8th, it was announced by ESPN that the New York Knicks plan to waive center Joakim Noah, presumably to maintain cap space for the upcoming 2019 free agency class. It's been more than a week since that announcement, and Noah is still on the team. Why? The New York Knicks are set to pay Noah $18.5 million in 2018-2019 and then $19.3 million in 2019-2020. If the Knicks were to waive him today, his remaining salary would be stretched over twice of the number of years remaining on his contract plus one. So that would be about $7.5 million over 5 years. However, if the Knicks were to waive him after August 31st, his salary would be paid the normal amount the first year, and then the remaining year would be stretched over twice the number of years plus one. So that would be about $6.4 million over 3 years. The Knicks will likely waive Noah after September 1st because it both lowers the number of payments the team has to pay him in terms of frequency and value, while also maintaining cap space for that 2019 offseason.